Great. So hello everyone, my name is Emilie. I've been working at the Princeton Public Library for about a year, not and a half, but almost, since March 2022. I'm a library associate at the Adult Services department. And so I'm going to present you this Tour de France from A to Z. So as you can hear, I am French. That has probably not escaped you. All right. So a quick note about the tour that I'm going to give you. So my intention with this program is to make you discover some cities and regions from all parts of France, whether it's renowned places that you've probably already heard about, or hidden gems, midtown cities, small villages that are a bit more remote, but very interesting though. I will also talk to you about some French cultural traditions, and you will see that some regions of France have very specific traditions that you can find only there and not in other parts of France. And I will also share with you some fun facts, pop culture elements, and literary and movie references. So also, what is this tour not going to be? So I am not a history teacher. So this program won't be a history class, even though every once in a while I will give you some historic anecdotes about the things I will present to you. It's not going to be a political discussion, so don't ask me anything about what's going on in France right now. And choices had to be made, so I won't be able to present you the whole country. And as well, so yeah, I chose some cities where I lived in the past, so I will have more things to tell about those cities. And yeah, so for example, you will see in this presentation that sometimes there might be some discrepancies between one city and another. Like I will have some more things to say about one city and less to say about other cities. So if you have any questions during this tour, you can definitely write them into the chat and I will answer all of those at the end of the session. And also, I just wanted to take this quick minute to tell you that this session is being recorded and it will be added to our YouTube channel in a few days after the session ends. All right. So... All right, so first, what is France? So when you think about France, most of the time you think about mainland, what we call métropole, which is also called the Hexagon. But France is more than that. It is actually also comprised of overseas territories, as you can see, that are scattered all over the planet, mostly islands, except from French Guiana in South America. So overall, France is composed of 18 regions and 101 départements, which are administrative subdivisions. Those overseas territories don't have the same administrative status. Some are regions, some are départements. I'm not going to enter into the details of there because it might be a bit confusing. But yeah, and so during the whole presentation, also, I wanted to tell you that I'm going to follow the same plan. So first, I will going to give you some general information about the city that I'm going to present you. In a second part, I will give you 3 to 4 points of interest to see in that city. Then I will go with the cultural life and festivals that you can check if you happen to visit those cities. And we will end by food, which I'm sure that you are very interested of. All right, so today's destination will start with letter A and B. So does anyone want to try to pronounce the name of that city? I'm going to unmute you so you can unmute yourself if you want to try to pronounce the name of that city.
Is it Enge?
No.
Sorry.
No, but yeah. It's good to try. Good to try.
Angers.
No.
Angers?
Yeah, that's very close. So yeah, it's actually Angers.
Angers.
Yeah. All right.
Say, will you please repeat? What did you say?
Angers. So a lot of
On-
letters that you don't pronounce, like
On-
a lot of words in France.
On here, right?
Angers.
Andre.
Yeah.
Thank you. Andre. Thank you.
I'm going to mute you all again. All right. So yeah, Angers is not the city of angry people. It's a beautiful city. All right. So here you have a first glimpse of the city. So Angers is the biggest city of the Anjou historical region in the Loire Valley. So you could see maybe on the map, let me go back to the... So Anjou was historically about there. And this name may ring a bell if you've ever bought Anjou pears at the supermarket. Those pears are supposedly from this region. All right. And so it is crossed by the Maine River. So I checked, and so the river didn't give its name to the state in the US, even though the US state took its name from another region of France, but not from the river that crosses Angers. So I was born and raised in Angers, and I'm very proud to tell you that it's been ranked best French city to live in 2022 and 2023. And mostly because of the different reasons that follow. So it has a temperate climate, which makes it never too hot, never too cold. It might change with climate change, but hopefully not too much. It offers lots of natural spaces, and it's been labeled greenest city in 2020. It offers a wide range of university opportunities, so it's quite a young city, like very vivid, and it offers also a lot of opportunities for cultural life. So a lot of bars, lots of concert halls, lots of festivals. And so the Angevin kindness has been mentioned in literature since the Renaissance, including in a poem that I'm going to share with you right here, which is called Happy Who Like Ulysses, which was written by Joachim du Bellay, who was a poet who lived in the Angers area in the 16th century, so which is called Happy Who Like Ulysses. Happy who like Ulysses, or that lord who raped the fleece, returning full sage, with usage and the world's wide reason stored, with his own kin can wait the end of age. When shall I see, God knows, my little village smoke, or pass the door, the old dear door of that unhappy house, that is to me a kingdom and much more. Mightier to me the house my fathers made, than your audacious heads, O halls of Rome, more than immortal marbles undecayed, the thin sad slates that cover up my home. More than your Tiber is my Loire to me, than Palatine my little Lierre there, and more than all the winds of all the sea, the quiet kindness of the Angevin air. So this poem was translated by Gilbert Keith Chesterton in its poems published in 1945. So you might wonder what's the name of the people who live in Angers. So we are not angels, although some people may wonder, but we are called Angevin and Angevine. Okay. So we'll start with the points of interest. So the first that I want to talk to you about is the most important landmark of the city of Angers, which is its castle. So it was founded in the 9th century, and the fortress itself is from the 13th century. So the towers that you can see here, which are made mostly of tuffeau stone, so it's a kind of white creamy limestone, and the slates. So those are materials that are very common in the regions and that were used for the castle of Angers and as well a lot of castles of the Loire Valley. So it's designed, so the tower was from the 13th century. A chapel was built inside of the castle in the 15th century during the Renaissance. And if you stroll inside of the castle, you will encounter multiple gardens with different atmospheres. Like, for example, you can find a suspended garden with species cultivated in the Middle Ages, like medicinal plants, vegetable garden, some vines, then more contemporary landscaping, and an area with flowers and trees from the south of France. So it is actually the Castle of Angers is part of the Château de la Loire, of the Loire Valley castles. I will tell you more about those in just a bit later. And so the Castle of Angers is the host of the Tapestry of the Apocalypse that I'm going to talk to you about right now. So the Tapestry of the Apocalypse is the largest set of medieval tapestries that has survived nowadays. So it's the illustration of the Apocalypse from the Book of Revelation by St. John, and it was commissioned by Louis I, Duke of Anjou, and woven in Paris between 1377 and 1382 during what we call the 100-Year War. So now it's about 100 meters long, and is composed of 74 scenes. Originally, it was 140 meters long and was composed of 84 scenes. So by scene, I mean those squares or rectangles, those individual rectangles. So first, it was kept by the Cathedral of Angers until the French Revolution, when at that time it was dispersed and part of it was destroyed, but most of it was recovered and restored in the 19th century. So that's why we don't have the whole thing, because some parts were unfortunately destroyed during the events of the French Revolution, especially because the churches were under attack most of the time, and that led to some art dispersion across the country. And so very recently, last May, it was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List as part of the memory of the world. And I was very happy when I woke up that day last May to hear about that. That really made my day. So here you have another view of the castle. So this is the chapel from the 15th century. If you know a bit about architecture, you might notice that so that this big window is a sign of the Renaissance because it's wide open. And sorry. And so yeah, here is contemporary landscaping made in the last couple of decades. All right, so the second point of interest that I want to talk to you about is the Jean Lurçat and Contemporary Tapestry Museum. So what we have right here is a work made by artist Jean Lurçat, who lived in the 20th century, called The Song of the World. It is the biggest temporary tapestry. So like, yes, it is the biggest temporary tapestry. It's composed of 10 panels, and if you put them one after the other, it's 80 meters long in total, and each of them is about 4.40 meters high. So Jean Lurçat encountered the Tapestry of the Apocalypse in 1937, and he was so impressed that he decided to create its contemporary counterpart. And his works helped revive the arts of tapestry in contemporary arts. So it was woven between 1956 and 1966. Unfortunately, Jean Lurçat died before he finished the last panel, so he was never able to see his work completed, which is really a shame. So the first part of the tapestry, the Song of the World, is very not really pessimistic, but is more about destruction. For example, the Hiroshima bombing that really traumatized his generation, and like between the 1940s and 1950s. So he was very traumatized by that traumatic event. And the second part of the tapestry wants to be more hopeful in humanities and deals more with the arts, the importance of poetry, and gives a hopeful message about what the world can be. So this tapestry, the Song of the World, is hosted in a 12th century building that used to be a hospital, and quite funny enough. So the tapestry of the Apocalypse and this tapestry, the Song of the World, are on each part of the main river. So they kind of face each other as if they echo one another. So right next to this building, you can find the Museum of Contemporary Tapestry, where you can find some collections and exhibitions of works around fabric and textile from the 1930s to nowadays. All right. So the third point of interest is Terra Botanica. So it's an amusement park focused on plants and biodiversity. It opened in 2010. It showcases the local know-how in botany and horticulture. Angers has a lot of research centers and horticulture companies, and so it's quite active in research around the vegetal and botany. So if you go over there, you can find some attractions and shows and walking paths to explore the park and the universe of plants through our 4 main themes. So the origins of life, where you can discover some very ancient species, unusual plants, carnivorous plants or plants growing in extreme conditions. Getaway in Anjou, you will find local species over there, and great explorations where you can find species from remote places like New Zealand, the Amazon, or Vietnam. So now for the Loire Valley castles. So as you can see, there are quite a lot of castles in that area. So Angers is over here. So basically it stretches from, so some take it from around Angers until after Orléans. Some other people make it start already in Nantes. So there's no, people don't really agree about the number of castles in the Loire Valley. So among the ones that I visited, so Angers, obviously, Saumur, Langeais, Chenonceau, and Chambord. So let me give you a bit more information about those. So the castles that you can find of the Loire Valley were either built or restored during the Renaissance, so in the 15th or 16th centuries. And you find so many over there because at the time, the capital of France was Tours. So if we go back to the previous slide, Tours was over there. So actually, the kings transferred the capital from Paris to Tours at that time in the 15th and 16th century. So that's why you have that concentration of castles in the world, which is the highest concentration of castles that you can find in the world. Sorry. So it was a time of cultural openness. There was less need for defensive castles. And so nobles and the royal court developed leisure residences in that area. So not all the castles are on the map, only the most important ones. So I have an open question for you. How many castles do you think there are in the Loire Valley? Let me try to unmute you again. So yeah, you can unmute yourself, or either like write in the chat to like give a number of castles you think exists in the Loire Valley.
Just give a guess. Uncountable, I mean.
Like, yeah, just give a guess. Is it like a few hundred, 1,000, like
Thousands of them.
So yes, there are thousands of them. So there are about 3,000 castles in the Loire Valley, which is a very, very high number of castles. So as I said, so yeah, there are about 3,000 castles in the Loire Valley, and so it's one part of France that attracts the most tourists per year, and so yeah, close to 10 million visitors each year. So from France and people who are from other parts of the world. So this one is the Chenonceau Castle that I went to with some friends maybe 5 years ago. Fun fact about this one is that it was nicknamed the Castle of the Dam, as its edification and renovations were led mainly by noble women. It was designed by Catherine Brissonnet, arranged by the Countess Diane de Poitiers, and then enlarged under the reign of Queen Catherine of Medicis. Another castle that I visited was in Saumur. So that one, when I visited it with my mother, same like a few years ago, the guide told us that since the beginning of the 20th century, it was under constant renovations. So like, yeah, first the city of Saumur wanted to build a museum over there, so they had to make some renovation, but then during World War II, parts of the castles were destroyed, so they had to renovate it again, and part of it collapsed in 2001. So yeah, it's been like basically when people were done renovating one part, they had to like go to the other side of the castle to renovate it again, because it's like very bulky, and so like, yeah, parts started to crumble like one after the other. So they really have to renovate it like part after part, and it takes decades and decades. All right. So now let's talk about the cultural life that Angers offers. So I have to say that I'm so grateful that I was so exposed to arts during my childhood and my teenage years, because I really feel that it really helped building my cultural knowledge, I would say. So the first I'm going to tell you about is the Premier Plan Festival, which is a movie festival that happens every January, where I went to see many retrospectives from famous directors from all over the world, actors. Usually there's one subject that transferred to a lot of movies, like Metamorphosis, Escape, like different concepts. The Festival d'Anjou is the second biggest festival in France. The second biggest, so yeah, theater and performing arts festival in France, the first one being Avignon. So this festival actually takes place mainly in another castle of the Loire Valley, which is very close to Angers. And over there, so yeah, I went to see so many plays, classic and contemporary pieces that I really enjoyed. Temporive is a music festival that happens usually during summer. This one is a bit more recent. It was created in 2009. And so yeah, they mainly showcase groups like bands and solo artists that are on their way to fame. And my favorite one is called the Accroche-Cœurs, and so it's this one here. It happens every first or second weekend in September, and it's a street arts and performing arts festival, which is always so much fun. I remember going there with my friends when I was in middle school, and every year they would have a theme, and we would like disguise and like wear costumes according to the themes, and we would have a lot of fun all together. And there would be like shows and like artist performances all through the city, and for free. All right, so for the foodies, all right, some of my colleagues had the opportunity to try that when I came back from France with a box of Carnon d'Ardoise. So those are sweets that are basically made of nougatine covered of blue chocolates to remind the slates that you can find in the area. It's very good, very, very sweet, but so good. If you have the opportunity to try them, definitely go for it. This, you will definitely find them only in the Angers area. It's very specific from there. And yeah, I've never seen those anywhere in France apart from Angers. Second is specialty of the region is pâté aux prunes. So when you hear about pâté, usually it's more like a meaty kind of a meaty kind of spread, I would say. But in that case, it's a cake made of plums. Third one is Rio. So it's made of a very specific part of pork, which is quite fat, but very, very good. And so the botro has some kind of, I would say almost donuts, but like that are made mainly soon close to carnival season. They are flavored with either rum or orange blossom. And if you want to have those specialties, you can try to associate them with some local wine or liqueur. So if you want to take an aperitif in Angers, you can either go for Montpassy, or after the meal, you can have a small glass of Cointreau. So Montpassy is a liqueur made of mint, and Cointreau, you can find it definitely in the US. I've seen it. So it's like a orange blossom flavored liqueur that tastes a bit like triple sec. If you eat fish or cheese, you can definitely aim for a wine from Savennières, which is a white dry wine that very goes well with either fish or cheese. And for dessert, you can definitely aim for Coteau du Léon, which is a very, very sweet white wine emblematic of the region. It's very good, but as I say, like very, very sweet. So it goes perfectly with desserts. It's a bit hard to appreciate by itself, but pairing with anything sweet, it's perfect. And if you just want to like relax or don't want to think much about what to choose, you can always go for a glass of rosé of the Loire region, which are always refreshing. All right. So next up is Bordeaux. All right. So Bordeaux literally means by the water. You probably heard about it because it's the world wine capital, and it is the second city with the highest number of historic monuments. So throughout those presentations, the destination historic monuments will come back again and again. So to give you a definition, here is one given by the French Ministry of Culture. So a historic monument is a building or a movable object, furniture or building by destination, receiving a special legal status intended to protect it for its historical interest, artistic, architectural, but also technical or scientific, so that it is preserved, restored, and enhanced. So yeah, it is a very common label in France. So chances are that I will use this designation a lot with the next presentations. And so the Port of the Moon in the city of Bordeaux is inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. I went to Bordeaux only once in my life for a day. It was more than 10 years ago, I think. So yeah, I said only one day, but I had quite a positive impression of it. For me, it was like Angers, but bigger, in the sense that it's crossed by a river that separates the city in two. And it has a lot of beautiful buildings that were made, I would think, at the same time and the same kind of architecture. So I had a very good impression of it. All right, so let's go with the points of interest. So the first one is La Cité du Vin. So it's a museum focused on the history and production of wine around the world. So as I said, Bordeaux being the world capital for wine, it was a bit obvious that they would have some infrastructure focused on wine. All right, so the museum, as you can see, has quite a peculiar shape. You can think of the movement of wine in a glass, or the water, the Garonne right here flowing under the museum, the swirling of the river. So the architects really wanted to have the idea of movements, of liquid in movements when they conceived the building. So if you visit this museum, it revolves around 6 main themes. So vineyards around the world, know-how, wine through the ages, art of living, wine around the world, and Bordeaux wine. The museum offers interactive and sensory experience to learn about wine, but also to feel it. So you can smell things, you can touch things, you can, at the end of the visit, even taste some wines. And it might sound funny, but it's open to kids too, because they can, even if they don't drink wine, they can be interested about how to make it. So a visit apparently takes 2 or 3 hours average, but they offer 1 hour long tours if you're a bit more in a rush. So yes, at the end of the visit, you can definitely enjoy the panoramic view over the city from the Belvedere, where you can also enjoy a glass of wine that is included in your visit. And since its opening in 2016, it attracted more than 2 million visitors. So the second point of interest in Bordeaux is Les Bassins des Lumières. So it's could be translated as Lights Basin. So it's the largest digital art center in the world. It covers more than 13,000 square meters of projection area. And it opened in June 10th, 2020. Probably not the best moment to open a museum, as it was right in the middle of the pandemic. But still, they managed to attract a lot of people since they opened. So it's divided in 6 spaces, 3 for exhibitions, like the one that we can see here. So as this museum was created in a German submarine base that was built during World War II, there was also a space museum about the history of that building. So if it's something you're interested about, you should definitely go there. And so it offers exhibitions of contemporary creators and modern works transposed into digital arts. So for example, so this is an exhibition of Klimt's paintings made into digital arts. They had, I think, some exhibition of Dali works, Paul Klee and Yves Klein. And so, yeah, those exhibitions are quite immersive in the sense that they try to as well create an audio experience with like some music, or maybe sometimes they play with the sound of the water and the echo of the room. So it's like a multi-sense kind of exhibition. Then I'm going to talk to you about the Porte Caillot, which is the Caillot door. So it's a medieval city gate that was built in the 15th century. So Caillot is the word for little stone in Gascon, which is a dialect that's spoken in the southwest of France. So yes, it's a medieval gate that has elements from Middle Ages in the architecture, and some other architectural elements from the Renaissance. So from the Middle Ages, so there used to be like I can find the word now. Portcullis, like a medieval door. Matriculation over here. And like elements of the architecture, so like, yeah, the wider windows and the towers are definitely elements from the Renaissance. So in total, it's 35 meter high. And if you go up there, so you will have a view over the oldest bridge of Bordeaux, Le Pont de Pierre, so the stone bridge. So inside you will find an exhibition about the tools and materials used for building the city of Bordeaux in the 15th century. And so it was designated, it received the label of Monument Historique in the late 19th century. So then I'm going to talk to you about another kind of castles, which is the Bordeaux wine castle. So when we talk about castles in Bordeaux, we talk about vineyards. But so yeah, in that case, a vineyard does not necessarily come with a castle. With some vines, yes, but not necessarily with a castle. So the Bordeaux vineyard area covers about 110,000 hectares. And so there are some wine trails and tours that are offered in the region to discover and taste the wines of the area. So how many vineyards do you think there are around Bordeaux? Once again, you can unmute yourself, like give an estimate number or write it in the chat.
Hundreds of.
More.
1,000 something?
More.
Oh my goodness. 5,000.
So not 10,000, but 7,000, like more than 7,000 vineyards in the Bordeaux area. So that's huge. So yeah. Examples of those castles are over here. So this is the Car vineyard, and this one, so you can't really see the vineyard itself, but in that case, the actual castle building, which is Chateau Margaux, which you may have heard of because it's one of the, I would say, most praised wine in the area.
Excuse me, can I ask what is the average bottles, I mean the annually produced bottles of each vineyard here?
So I can tell you for each vineyard, but at the end of my presentation of Bordeaux, I will give you the number of bottles produced by the whole area.
Sure, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. All right. So Bordeaux has a quite vivid cultural life too. So here are 4 main festivals in Bordeaux. So the Bordeaux Wine Festival, of course, like they were going to have a wine festival because it's Bordeaux. So the Bordeaux Wine Festival and the River Festival, so they alternate. So 1 year, so 1 every second year will be the Bordeaux Wine Festival, and the other year it will be the River Festival. So those 2 offer the same kind of programmation, with like some so wine tasting, food tasting along the water banks of the Garonne. And so yes, some ships would come on the Garonne. You could visit them. The sailors could showcase their know-how and teach you how to tie some knots and so on. There would be concerts, performances along the river, and some big fireworks at the end of the festival. Bordeaux also organizes an international independent film festival. So this one was created in 2012, and it promotes independent productions with like showings of French and international movies. And Relâche is a music festival that lasts 3 to 4 months from June to September, so it's quite long. And so, yes, you can hear concerts all around the city from local and international artists. And so food, Bordeaux is a very good scene for food as well, with a very interesting cuisine. So in Bordeaux, what you can find, for example, is lamproie à la bordelaise. So it's a fish cut in pieces and cooked in a red wine sauce with leeks for hours. Another specialty is crépinette. So it's a flat, round kind of sausage of ground meat. It can be pork, poultry, or even game. That is very often served with oysters. Grenier Médocain, so it's not sexy on the picture, I have to admit. So it's a kind of charcuterie of pork stomach rolled, stewed and boiled in a broth that you then cut in slices. And the most emblematic specialty of Bordeaux is the cannelé. So it's a pastry that is quite small, like it's a sweet, small and soft cake that tastes of rum and vanilla. I think you can find some in bakeries. I wonder if some bakeries in Princeton make them. At least I've never tried them. And I know that some bakeries in New York City make them. So I can be sure that they will be as good as in Bordeaux, but you can definitely have a try and tell me if you like them. So coming back to the wine, so as I was saying, the Bordeaux wine area covers a very large surface. So it's divided into 2 main regions, so the left bank and the right bank of the Garonne River. So the left bank is composed of Médoc, Grave, and Sauternay. And the right bank, the Blayais, the Bourget, the Libournais, and the Entre-deux-Mers, between 2 seas. So about 800 million bottles are produced each year in the region. 800 million bottles. That is a lot of wine. And so 80% of the production of Bordeaux is red wine. They make a few white and crémant and even a few rosé. And if you go to Bordeaux, you could try to experience sipping premier cru wines that are among the best that you can find in the area. So if you happen to drink in your life wine coming from the Château Lafite Rothschild or Château Latour, Château Margaux, Château Mouton Rothschild, or Château Aubryon, it means that you're having a very, very good wine and that you could take your time to appreciate it. The most expensive Bordeaux wine that you can find is from Château Petrus, which ranges from, so for a single bottle, from a few $100s to more than $10,000. If you want to have one of those, you can try to find one maybe in the few hundreds. So a fun fact about Bordeaux wines is that the vineyards were destroyed at the end of the 19th century by phylloxera. So a kind of bug that spreaded a disease in the vines. And so to fight against that disease, the vines were saved by grafting Bordeaux scions onto American rootstock that could resist the disease. And 99.9% of all the rootstock in Bordeaux is originally from the US. So America saved us again in a way. All right. So I want to thank you for your attention. So that's the end of this presentation for today. If you have any question, I can answer them from the chat, or if you want to ask questions, you can unmute yourself. Feel free. If you have any comments too.
I wanted to ask if there was one that we couldn't come to, is there a way to view it later on?
So the whole series is comprised of 9 presentations, and so each presentation is being recorded and they will be added to the Princeton Public Library's YouTube channel just a few days after the session ends.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The bottle of the wine in Bordeaux, you say they're from few hundred to $10,000?
The Petrus wine, yeah. So like, yeah, this is the, so Petrus itself is like the name of the chateau. And this is the vineyard in Bordeaux that produces the wine that's the most expensive for the region. So like it can range from like a few $100 for a bottle, and another bottle that from like a very specific year, for example, will cost like thousands of dollars because there were many few bottles produced that year, for example.
Thousands, like you said, 10,000?
Yeah, the most expensive one is $10,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. So I see a question in the chat. Will you be discussing how to travel through the regions? So I was not planning to talk about that, but the fact is that in France, there are a lot of trains that are very used to go from one region to another. The good thing is that, so before, I would say that 20, 30 years ago, everything was centralized and you had to go to Paris to like, for example, if you wanted to go from Angers to Marseille, the south of France, you had to change a train in Paris, change like train station and take another train to go to Marseille. Because now they build some other train station around Paris, you don't necessarily have to like get down the train and take another one and like waste an hour like wandering in Paris and don't know where the train station is. You can just like stay in the train and it goes like all the way down to Marseille. Like not all the regions are well connected to one another still, but car sharing is very, very popular in France. I would say way more than in the US. So it's very easy, I would say, to like sign up on the app and find some like people to drive you from point A to point B, even if it's like a few like hundred of kilometers away. Yeah. So I think Varsha, you had a question. I don't know if it was answered already.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You have.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay. All right. And so, yeah, so next stops will be Clermont-Ferrand, Dunkerque, and Etretat, which are in
Next
some of
Wednesday,
the places in France.
next Wednesday, right? Next Wednesday, right?
Yes, next Wednesday. Yes, same from 1 to 2.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting.
My pleasure. All right. And so yes, if you have any questions that come up after I close the Zoom, don't hesitate to come by the library. Can I have the bottle numbers average? So so the Bordeaux wine region produces average 800 million bottles per year, if this was your question.
You mean the whole area? I'm asking for
Yeah.
the average bottles of each vineyard in this area.
Oh, those I don't know. For that
Okay.
I don't know, unfortunately. Yeah, that was digging a bit too deep in the because
Okay.
there are like 65 appellations
Mhm.
in the Bordeaux region. Like looking for all the specs of each of the appellation was a bit too much research.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
So we see the train on the side of the screen, train rail,
No.
rails.
So
No,
on the
we see
side,
the rails. So we are traveling with you in France.
yeah. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. This is very interesting.
Thank you. All right. So see you next week then, I hope.
Okay, see you next week.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.